Hey everybody, John here for Nintendo World Report TV, and it finally, actually happened. No rumors, no speculation. Nintendo just came out and said what the frack the NX is, and what it is the Nintendo Switch. An entirely new console and handheld hybrid, which is kind of what we all expected, but obviously there have been a bunch of different versions of this, but now we finally actually know what it is. My chair is rotating around and I need to get back to facing you. So you can play the Switch just like a regular console. You have a system that connects to your TV, you have controllers in your hands. So you can either control the system using a Pro Controller, which is a very creative name, I know, or what's an actual creative name, which is the Joy-Con. Anyway, it's essentially two halves of a regular controller. You have your analog stick and your D-pad and your L buttons on one, and you have your D-pad and your face buttons and your R buttons on the other one. But if you want to leave your house, say a friend on a neighboring rooftop is like, hey friend, who I know from the rooftop parties we have, come over here, then you can be like, no problem. You put your Joy-Cons on the side of the dock onto this piece that's actually a screen, and then you pull it out and it switches into a handheld. So that's kind of a mixture of two different rumors that we heard beforehand. The one rumor was that the controllers off the side of the screen were going to be detachable, which is true. The other one was that you would be able to transfer the guts of the system, the CPU, GPU, out of that dock and into the controller. What we never really fathomed is that the guts would actually be the screen itself, and you could just lift that right out of the dock and voila, you have a handheld. But there's lots of other cool stuff. All of that stuff was kind of things we'd heard before, but there's lots of new stuff that we hadn't, so let's dig into that. We now know from a blog post by NVIDIA that this thing does indeed, as was sort of rumored beforehand, run on a custom version of the Tegra processor, which is a very good processor, but you should obviously be aware, and this should be easy to figure out from the fact that this thing is like that thin. This is not going to compete on a pure technical horsepower level with the Xbox One or the PS4. It's just, I mean, unless NVIDIA has made some sort of huge, momentous forward step in graphical technology to allow this thing, which is this big and has no obvious like giant fan unit or huge power supply, it's not going to be an Xbox One or a PS4, but it might be closer to them than we think. And this is because of a game that was announced for this system today in this trailer, which was the Elder Scrolls Skyrim Remastered, or Special Edition, whatever you want to call it. I always want to say HD, but I guess it was HD the first time. It's HD-er. It's more HD than it was before. Point is, that game runs on the engine that Bethesda designed for Fallout 4, which was an 8th gen exclusive, an Xbox One, PS4, and PC exclusive. And it does appear from the little bits of footage that we've seen, this is the remastered version, it is not the 360 and PS3 version. So that means that this thing might be a little bit closer to the Xbox One and PS4 than you would initially think. But the other weird thing we can get from that is that Bethesda is making a Nintendo game, which is weird. As you probably know, the Elder Scrolls series has never appeared on a Nintendo platform before, and Bethesda has at times even been somewhat aggressive about their complete lack of interest in developing games for Nintendo hardware, simply because they're not technically forward-thinking enough, which is something that Bethesda, being a stuck-up-their-butt PC Master Race developer, really likes. Anyway, the fact that they are developing for this system is interesting. What does it mean? Who knows? But Nintendo is obviously using them as sort of their flagship third-party developer, which is not the third party you would have thought to see partnering up with Nintendo for the reveal of this system. In the past, it's always been companies like Ubisoft, whom we didn't really see anything from today, or EA, who we did see sportsing was happening. I don't know, I think it was basketball. There were men and the ball, and it was being thrown. Could be anything. No one really knows for sure. We'll talk to our professional sports analyst to find out exactly what sort of sportsing was occurring in that video. The other big question when it comes to the power of this thing is that the more powerful it is, the more terrible its battery life has to be. I mean, as you saw in the trailer, this thing is really small. I mean, it's like that thick with like the guts of it. So I just don't see how the battery life of it could possibly be that good with something this big running a game like Skyrim Remastered. I don't quite see how that works out. So I'm very, very concerned about the actual battery life of this as a handheld. It can't possibly be all that powerful because it would start on fire. So, but on the bright side, it does have a fold-out stand, which is something the Wii U really could have used, so, you know, good job on that, Nintendo. But along with Bethesda, which is by far the weirdest developer we're seeing for this, we did also get a list via Nintendo's press release of other developers who have signed on. For the most part, it's kind of just the people you would expect. I wouldn't really try to glean too much information out of it. It's very common at the beginning of a console's life cycle for every third party in the world to be like, oh yes, we fully support this console. And then a year later, you know, you're getting 2 games a year, Wii U. But it's people you'd expect: EA, Ubisoft, Activision, all the major Western publishers. We got Square Enix, so that's absolutely 100% confirmed. Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3, those are coming to Nintendo Switch, so be ready for those. From Software was another one that just kind of stood out to me. That's the developer behind like the Dark Souls series and Bloodborne. So, you know, Dark Souls 4, Nintendo Switch exclusive. And then the last one I noticed was DNA, which is the developer behind Nintendo's mobile games. So I think we'll be probably seeing their appearance on the platform. And it'll be interesting to see whether those are just sort of ports of their mobile games, which could work given the kind of portability of this system, but we'll have to wait and see for sure. I just realized that we don't know whether this thing has a touchscreen. You would kind of, I guess in my head it did, because the 3DS, DS, Wii U, like Nintendo's been real big on the whole touchscreen thing. I don't think we saw them use a touchscreen anywhere in that trailer. We do know, however, that screen is an HD screen, according to the press release. I don't know the exact pixel count of HD, but let's assume 720p or higher, and we'll go with that. Probably not 4K, could be 1080, probably 720. But still, that is wonderful if it is indeed 720. It could still be lower, because HD on a small screen HD is sort of subjective. But 720, hopefully. We also saw that the games are indeed cartridges very similar to the 3DS. In fact, they look pretty much the same size and shape as the 3DS. Will we see 3DS compatibility? Probably not, but who knows? You gotta wait and see. The one thing we didn't see was a disk drive. So as far as physically based Wii U backwards compatibility, I'm fairly confident that that's gonna be a no. I don't see that happening. But maybe as far as like the digital purchases, maybe some sort of discount like they did with the virtual console between Wii and Wii U. But as far as physical backwards compatibility, and probably even digital backwards compatibility for like retail Wii U games, I don't think it's gonna happen, but we'll have to wait and see to be sure. We also saw a weird car mount when they were playing Mario Kart in the car, but playing that while driving is gonna be a whole new challenge for me, especially if I'm still playing Pokemon Go on the other hand. Nintendo needs to come up with some sort of peripheral to allow me to more efficiently game on multiple devices in my car at once. One of the big things, of course, about the system, besides the whole handheld console thing, is the idea of portable local multiplayer with a single system, which is a weird kind of phrase to say. Essentially, the controllers, obviously being detachable from the side of these things, can each be held sideways and work like almost somewhere between an NES and an SNES controller. So essentially each player has an analog stick and 4 face buttons. They could presumably also use the L or R button, depending on which one they have, but we don't really know. So that's a cool way to have multiplayer, local multiplayer on a single device while you're using it as a handheld. In the trailer, they showed stuff like that mysterious sports game, and they also showed that you could bring multiple Nintendo Switches, which would be a weird world in which multiple people you know own a Nintendo home console at the same time in the same local area. And you could bring those together and play like Battleship mode, where you have 2 teams with their own screen playing against each other, which I feel like is something that I'll see in trailers and I'll never actually have the friend arrangement to pull off. Maybe like once in my life and it'll be a magical experience, but for the most part I'll just never ever get that, and it'll be this elusive thing that lives in the Nintendo trailers, sort of like when people get together at parks to play Monster Hunter. I don't know where those parks are. I've looked, Sometimes I go out with a sign into the parks and I hold it up and I say Monster Hunter, and people look and stare and I get sad. We did also see some other various little tidbits of games. Obviously we know Zelda Breath of the Wild is coming to the system, but we also saw a new version of Splatoon, which seemed to be a single screen version. That's the other thing we need to note about this thing, is that because the guts of the system are essentially presumably in the screen of the handheld, this isn't a Wii U where you have multiple screens at the same time. As far as we know, you're only using one or the other. So Splatoon, for example, which used both screens before, it appears that the new version we get is a single screen version. The nice thing is that means that it will work in a handheld way, and that's the other cool thing about this system, is because it doesn't use that multi-screen design where you're using multiple screens at the same time. Truly any game can go into this handheld mode, unlike on the Wii U where it was up to the developer whether or not to support off-TV play. This will just always support that, which I think will make for a lot more consistency as far as what we can expect out of a game, whether or not, like every game that comes out on this will be playable as a handheld game and as a home console game, and that's very exciting. There will be no guessing as far as, this one, really uses both screens, so it has to be on the TV, or this one can be either way. This one can be just on the gamepad, but it's kind of worse because it wasn't really designed that way. None of that. It'll just be, it works on both, which is great. We also saw a new version of what looks like Mario Kart 8, maybe Mario Kart 8.5. Well, I don't know what it's called, but essentially we're seeing some ports of Wii U games, which is something we had heard about a lot beforehand. Essentially just porting kind of the best of the Wii U library because nobody played them. So you have all these games that you have access to. It'll also be interesting to see how much actual difference there is beyond just the removal of the second screen stuff, if there's actually extra content. The one other game we saw besides Mysterious Sports and Skyrim was a new 3D Mario game. It had sort of the same look as Super Mario 3D World, but the camera's like more kind of low down behind Mario and much more of like a Mario 64, Mario Sunshine perspective. Maybe. It did still look like it's multiplayer, as we saw when the woman went to the roof of a neighboring building to play with the people who were inexplicably on the roof of a neighboring building. It looked like they were playing multiplayer. They didn't really show that they were playing that Mario game in multiplayer, but who knows? We'll see. That's about all that we saw today. Obviously, now that the word is out, other developers should be able to start revealing their games for the system soon too, and we'll probably get a lot more. Nintendo did reconfirm a March 2017 release date. There were some rumors that it was going to be delayed, but it seems that Nintendo is sticking to that release date, at least for now. No pricing yet, but I'm sure that will be coming sometime in the near future. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Once again, my name's John Rairdon. Be sure to subscribe to this channel to get more Nintendo goodness delivered to your face. Check out our Patreon if you really enjoy this. That's patreon.com/NWR, and by supporting us there, you get access to all kinds of extra stuff. You get videos early, you get exclusive content, and you even get game nights with people like me and other members of the staff. It's a lot of fun. Go check it out. That's patreon.com/NWR. You can also check out NintendoWorldReport.com for lots more Nintendo coverage, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.